In this video I'm going to talk about where you can put your CSS styles and about using colour, and also about setting fonts. So let's get started. There are three places you can put your CSS. The first is inline, that is to say as an attribute of the element. So if I create an h1 tag, h1, and then style equals color colon blue for a blue color, and then here I'll put I am inline styled text. I will save that and I get the blue color. The trouble with this is that it is in your HTML page and it can get very messy, especially if you have a lot of styles to put in. The second place you can put your CSS styles is inside the head of the HTML page. So if I create an H2 this time, we'll call it I get my styling from the head section of the HTML page, and then here I can put style and then H2 color green. If I save that, I get this line in green. By far though the best and most commonest way is to use an external style sheet like this styles.css, and then you have a link which links the style sheet to the HTML page. So if I create a third header element, call it H3, I get my styling from a style sheet. I can save that, and then I can go into styles.css, do H3 color is red, and I get my red color on my H3. Here is a slide explaining the parts of a CSS rule. You start off with selector, which is either in this case it's a class, but it can be a element or it can be a ID. And then you have curly brackets, and inside the curly brackets you have the actual rule, and then you have a colon and then the value, and at the end you have a semicolon as a separator to end the declaration. So far in this video I've talked about setting colors using color names, but there are a limited number of color names. A more normal way of setting colors is to use hexadecimal values. What are hexadecimal values, I imagine you asking? Well, look at the top table, top row. It shows a row of decimal numbers going from 0 to 16. In everyday numbers, decimal numbers, we count from 0 to 9, and then for the next value we increment the left hand column to 1, and then the right hand column is set to 0 to give 1, 0 or 10. Then we go from 10 to 19, and then the next value we increment the left hand column and we set the column to 2 and the right hand column to 0, and so we get 20. In hexadecimal, which is shown in the row below the decimal values in the top table, you go from hexadecimal, you go to 9, and then instead of going to set the left hand column to 1 and the right hand column to 0, you set it to A. So it goes 9A. And then for the next number, which is 11 decimal, it goes to B. And then C, D, E, F. And then after F, then you set the left hand column to 1 and the right hand column goes to 0. If you look at the middle table, on the right hand side you have decimal, and you have a tens column and a ones column. So the numbers can go from 00 to 99. On the left hand side you have hexadecimal, and you have a 16s column and a ones column, and the numbers can go from 00 to FF. The bottom table shows an example. At the top of the bottom table is this orangey colour, which I like. Its hex value is F97316. And so I have 3 columns below that, red, green and blue, and the F9 goes into the red column, and the 73 goes into the green, and the 16 is the blue. You may be wondering why use hex values at all. The reason is hex numbers are compact and use less memory, so more numbers can be stored in a computer system. Their small size also makes input-output handling easier. Compared with other numbering formats, it's easy to convert hexadecimal to binary and vice versa, and binary is used in electronic computers. So next I want to show you RGB and RGBA. What I'm going to do is create an H4 tag, and I'm going to set I am get my styling from RGB and RGBA. Then I go to the styles.css, and here I'm going to set H4 and then background color is RGB 249 and 11522. So that gives us an orangey color in the background. These values are decimal. They're not hex values, they're decimal values. And then for the actual color, I'm going to set it to RGBA. I'm going to set it to 255, 255, 255. And the A is known as an alpha channel. The alpha channel sets the opacity, and opacity is the inverse of transparency. Opacity ranges from 0 to 1. When the opacity is 0, you can't see the text at all. When the opacity is 1, it's not at all transparent. I'm going to set it to 0.8, so it's partially transparent. and save that. And I'm going to set the font size, make it a bit bigger, make it 20px, so it looks a bit clearer. And you see the colour blends quite well when you have part of the colour showing through. This will be white, it's white normally. The next method of setting the colour I want to talk about is HSL, which stands for Hue, Saturation and Lightness. I'm going to create a H5 tag here. So H5. I get my styling from HSL. Hue, saturation, lightness. And the styles, I'll create H5, set the font size to 20px again, make it a bit bigger, and then I'll set the color to HSLA. The A is for alpha, same as this in RGBA. Set this to 180, 50%, 0.5. Set this to 1, I think. Okay, and it gives me this sort of bluey colour. Mouse over here, I can get the colour palette. I can click on that, and it changes from HSL, RGB, and that's the hex value. Back to the HS, hue, saturation, and lightness. Hue refers to this here. So if I move this up to the top, it goes to 0, and if I move it down to the bottom, it goes to 360, and then to 0, or it goes to 359, and then it goes to 0. So the colouring is normally you get a colour wheel, and that's why it goes from 0 to 360. Put it back to somewhere where it was, and then if I move this to the over here, for the saturation it's 0 there, 0 there, and then if I move it across it goes to 100%. So saturation is the amount of colour, or moving this from one side to the other, and the lightness I get from moving this up and down. Notice the end one is, the lightness is changing. Goes to 100% there. When I move it down to here, it goes to 0. And then to change the alpha, you move this here. Goes to 0. And it goes up to nearly 1. The next thing I want to talk about is font family. A font family is the style of font you want to give your elements. So if I set, I'll do it at the top here, set the body to a font family of Arial, then the page style changes to Arial. Everything in the body will be of the font style Arial. What it does is it tells the user's browser to search the device they are using to view the web page to see if they have the Arial font installed. If they do, then it displays the body content in Arial. Otherwise, it uses the browser's default font. Common fonts already installed on a user's device are known as web-safe fonts. Here is a list of common web-safe fonts and what they look like. The most common default web font is Times New Roman, and because we don't want it to fall back to that, we set what's known as a font stack. So instead of just having Arial, we have Arial and then Helvetica and sans serif. So what happens is, first of all, it looks to see if it can find the Arial font. If it can't find that, then it looks for Helvetica. If it can't find that, then it uses sans serif, and only then it does it fall back to a Times Roman or whatever the default is. Along with the font family, I can also set the font size, as we've already seen. I'll set this to 18px, and then also font weight, and I'll set that to normal, and that's just the default font weight. Font weight can also be bold or bolder or lighter. You can have bolder or lighter, and these font weights are relative to the parent weight, whereas just the bold is an absolute value that is bold. You can also have numbers. Instead of normal, you can have numbers like, say, 400, and that's about middle. It ranges from 100 to 900. There's also a shorter way of setting fonts. Instead of this, I could do it this way. Just go font and then normal 18px, Arial, Helvetica and sans serif. The next thing I want to talk about is the difference between CSS class selectors and ID selectors. Each ID can only be used once. So a place you might use that is, say, in the heading. A class can be used multiple times. So a typical place to use that is in comment sections, where you have a number of comments all with the same styling. As an example, I'm going to create some p tags inside index.html. Create p and then id equals my id. There is only one of me because I have ID. And I'm going to create another P tag, P, and class equals my class, and I have a class and classes can be used multiple times. So copy that, down a few times. Alright, so there it is there. It hasn't got any styling yet. So I'll do some styling for it. For the ID tag, you start the ID tag with a hash symbol, and then it's my ID, and I'm going to give it a color of blue, so it's hash 00 red, 00 green, and FF for the blue color. And I'm going to set the font size to 20px, and on the class you start the class with a dot, and it's my class, and then color is hash, I'm going to make this red, so it's red FF for red, and then 00 for green, 00 for blue, and that gives me my red color. And then I'll set the font size to 20px. Save that. There we are. I have the one blue with the ID, and the three classes with the my class. I think I will leave it at this for this video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe for more.